You might not have thought about these questions before coming to Kauai, but having the answers to them could make your experience here much better. Let's start by talking about transportation. Kauai is a rural island, meaning you're probably going to need a car or a way to get around other than walking or riding a bicycle. So what are the options with transportation on Kauai? We do have the Kauai bus, and a few people will choose to only use the Kauai bus. My recommendation is, if that's what you'd like to do, if you're a real budget traveler, you probably want to stay in Kapa'a. You can take the bus from the airport. You need to do one transfer into Kapa'a, and once you're in Kapa'a, you can really walk to a lot. It's not how I recommend seeing Kauai, but it is possible to do that. And I do know of people that do that every time they come. We do have Uber on Kauai, and if you want to use it, you can, but I suggest only using it when leaving the airport. I do not suggest using it getting back to the airport from any part of the island, even if you pre-schedule a ride before and someone accepts it. My experience and what has happened to other people I know, and I've ended up being their last minute driver, is they'll have these Uber, return to the, like for people like who even have cars here. They'll schedule an Uber ride to the airport, and 10, 15 minutes before their Uber is supposed to pick them up, it gets canceled, right? So don't schedule an Uber ride back to the airport. If you're at the airport, you can take an Uber to wherever you're going, and that should work out fine. You might have to wait a little while just because we are a small island, and you just don't know how many Uber drivers will be driving around the airport at any given time, but you can take them leaving the airport. The number one way to get around Kauai, though, is to get if you're a visitor, it's to get a rental car. Now, we have all the big rental car companies that you have heard of and that you can find online. We also have Turo, which is a great option, and the Turo company has a lot here on Kauai, pretty close to the airport, and they have a shuttle every 30 minutes that will take you from the airport to their lot. So it's pretty easy to use. Obviously not as easy as just going to a car rental company, and which are basically across the street from the airport. The one company I think I want to highlight is a company called Island Rental Cars. I'm not even sure if they have an online presence, and it is an island car. If you know, you know. But that is where you will get the greatest deal on a rental car on Kauai. What about food on Kauai? Well, I've done lots of videos, and more coming, about where to eat out on Kauai, right? So we've got lots of great restaurants. I suggest going to all of them. What I see people do all of the time is when they come here on vacation, they will go to the grocery store, or most likely Costco, and buy a ton of stuff thinking either we're gonna save money or we're gonna be healthy, one of these categories. And then they get here and they eat out for almost every meal. So when they leave, they have a ton of food left over. I think you should be open to eating out just because it's such a fun experience. So if you are gonna go shopping and get a lot of food at Costco or Safeway, Foodland, Big Save, just be realistic in how often you think you're gonna be going back to your rental and actually cooking a meal. That would be my tip for your food planning situation. One thing that is also really fun on Kauai, and there's one every day of the week on Kauai in different parts of the island, are our farmers markets. If you're coming to Kauai, there's a really good chance that you like tropical fruit, which you can't even find at our grocery stores here on Kauai most of the time. There are exceptions. But if you go to a farmer's market, you're gonna get the best pineapple, soursop, mangoes, papayas, longan, lychee. Think of the tropical fruit that you like. If it's in season, you're gonna be able to find it at a farmer's market. And I highly recommend going to a farmer's market while you're here. Here's another tip that most people do not like to really think about when they think about going on vacation. But what about healthcare on Kauai, right? If something goes wrong, it can be really important. So we have our main hospital is in Lahui, pretty between the airport and Walmart, Wilcox Hospital. You can get a lot of stuff done there. Obviously, if it's life-threatening and they can't treat you there, they will life flight you to Oahu where you will be treated. But we also have some really excellent urgent cares. There are some in Lahui. There's Makana Terrace, which is right behind the fire station outside of Princeville, which is staffed with all emergency medicine doctors. So I highly recommend Makana Terrace. But there are health clinics and urgent cares around the island, and it's easy to find one through Google. You could also, on the south side, they have someone who's a mobile MD who practices concierge medicine, and he'll probably, I'm not actually, keep this or don't keep this. I don't know if he'll drive to the North Shore, but he will service anyone on the south side of the island. And I've only heard good things about him. Now, if you're in a real emergency, dial 911. Let the ambulance come and pick you up. Don't try to figure out how to get yourself to a hospital. Just stay alive. That applies everywhere. What about cell phone service? You know, this is a big deal to a lot of people, especially if you're going to come to Kauai and work or need to have access to great, Wi-Fi while you're here and connection. Verizon and AT&T are by far the most connected carriers on Kauai. If you have T-Mobile or Sprint, it has gotten much better, but you're going to have a hard time on Kauai. You are going to have a lot of dead spots. So I don't know what your data plans are, or if you can piggyback onto someone else's. These are technical questions above my pay grade. But if it's important to you, I suggest getting Verizon or AT&T while you're on Kauai. What about budgets? Any travel index will let you know that, generally speaking, if you're vacationing in Hawaii, you're in the upper economic status. There obviously are ways to come to Kauai and to have a budget and to still have a great vacation, but a little money or a lot of money goes a long ways on Kauai. Kauai is considered an expensive place to go on vacation. So it might just be good to embrace that idea. There are budget places to stay, right? Like if you're a solo traveler or just coming with one person, you can find places to stay for as little as like about $100 a night. This would be like a studio, a room. There aren't many of them, but you can find some of these things. My tip to you, if you're a budget traveler, is to plan as far in advance as you can, because those kind of good deals go very quickly. We are part of the United States, so credit cards are widely accepted. You can use them everywhere you go. We do have ATMs. If you need to get cash, you can get that as well. If you're shopping like at a farmer's market or a crafts fair, almost everyone now accepts Venmo as well. So don't feel like you need to bring a lot of cash with you. Bring what you want to. Most people accept some form of digital payment as well. How safe is Kauai? I've always been told that the Kauai has the lowest crime of any county in the country. Now this is pre-COVID stats, so I'm hoping it's still the same. I don't actually know, but we have very low crime. What we do have in terms of safety is we have the ocean, and the ocean can be, if you're unfamiliar, it can be a very dangerous thing. We recommend to people visiting Kauai that they should only swim at beaches that have a lifeguard. So if you're unfamiliar with the ocean, that's not a light recommendation. It is not something that is highly publicized, but there are people who die on Kauai every year because they're swimming in places that don't have a lifeguard and they don't know what they're doing. They're unfamiliar with the current or the the riskiness of the spot that they are. A good example of that is Queen's Bath in Princeville. It's a beautiful hike. People love to hike down there, and every year someone loses their life there. So if it is if the gate's locked, for example, if the gate is locked when you want to hike Queen's Bath, maybe you should rethink that and come back in the summertime when it's a safer time to do the Queen's Bath hike and to swim in Queen's Bath. But if you're not familiar with the ocean, you really should only swim at beaches where there's lifeguards. And we have a lot of them. So you'll be able to go to all the favorite beaches and go swimming. Are there restrictions on sunscreen? Yes, we would like you to only use reef-safe sunscreen. So if you're bringing it from the mainland, please pay attention to the type of sunscreen you're buying. If you're buying it here on Kauai, it will probably be reef-safe, but it's always good to check the label and make sure that it is. You know, our wildlife on Kauai is part of what make the island of Kauai and the ocean around it so beautiful, and we do want to protect our reefs. Can you drink the tap water on Kauai? And the answer is yes. We have great water. Depending on where you're coming from, you might think it's better or worse than your own. You know, New York has amazing water. It might be a little under New York. If you're coming from Phoenix, it's going to be amazing, the best water you've ever tasted. But we have great water on Kauai, and we actually have quite a bit of natural spring water on Kauai. So don't feel like you can't drink the water out of the faucet. It's safe and it tastes good. What are your practical questions about Kauai? Is there something you'd really like to know that I can help out with? Is there something you experienced when you got here that you were like, oh my gosh, I can't find a phone charger anywhere? Which you can buy them at Walmart. But what questions do you have that I can help you with? I'd love to help. Please put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please smash the like button and like and follow. And I'm Annie Elison, your Kauai real estate pro. These are my practical tips for making your stay on Kauai a great one.